Hello everyone. If you're watching this, you missed day one of our week 18 Foundations of Tech class. Let's get to it. So we are winding things down. There are two assignments left. Assignment 21, Space Research, covered in the previous lecture. That is due Wednesday the 9th. Please make sure you're working on that and try to get that to me on time because I want to make sure I have all the information so I can compile it into a presentation for you guys. That's the whole point, is you will get to see what everyone found out. And I can't do that if you turn it in late. Assignment 22 is manufacturing techniques. We're going to talk about that today. It's going to be our last assignment, due Friday the 11th, and then it's just easy peasy coasting from there on out. So please make sure you complete these so that you can have a good grade in the class. Today we are talking about manufacturing techniques, as previously mentioned. When I say manufacturing, what do you think of? Well, probably not what the word actually means, because the actual Latin translation is kind of odd. It comes from manufactus, which means made by hand, which is kind of the opposite of what we really think about when we think manufacturing. We think factories, machines doing things for us. It means the opposite. Kind of weird. At any rate, manufacturing is the process of converting raw material into final product. And it really is all around you, right? There isn't a product you can look at that probably hasn't been manufactured in some way. When we talk about this process, it's really the three steps that we have been almost the entire year discussing already, which is product design. We've done a lot with that. Selection of materials. We've talked about properties of materials. Today we're going to finally cover this last little bit, which is selection of production methods and techniques. Along with that comes the three stages. So first you're going to do some rough forming, then finishing, and lastly assembly. So if you think of, let's say, a car, first you're going to cast and create the general outline of each part. Then you're going to drill the holes, install the hinges, combine whatever little parts need to be assembled there. And last, you're going to put the whole thing together. So, three steps. These steps are all going to be completed using these seven techniques, which we will discuss now. Now, I'm going to go through these pretty quick, one by one. This PowerPoint is also posted on MyMCPS under week 18, right next to assignment 22. If you open up assignment 22, the first part of it asks you to define these seven techniques. Please make sure you do that, either by watching this video, going through the PowerPoint on your own, or doing some independent research. And I'll cover the rest of the assignment in just a moment. So let's get to it. Casting. Casting is usually done with metals. You make a pattern, put that pattern into some sand, and then you pour molten metal into the cavity left behind by that pattern. This is going to give you a rough shape of whatever you're looking to have. It's going to, of course, not be able to do really detailed holes or really clean edges or anything like that. You're going to need to use machining to actually get those fine details in. And we'll talk about what that looks like in a little bit. Corners aren't going to be sharp or well-defined. This just gives you a rough outline. Next, joining. Joining is combining any two parts together. You can do this by using some kind of connecting material, so nails, glue, screws, all of that counts. Alternatively, you could potentially heat up the material so it starts to melt, and then stick it to wherever you want it to go, and let it harden. Call that welding sometimes. Could call that soldering some other times. So all of these are possibilities. As long as two things combine together, you're doing joining. Molding is usually done with plastics, and this is using liquid or molten material to create a new shape. And you achieve this by pouring a mold or pouring the material into a mold, typically under pressure of some kind. Very similar to casting, but done with plastics, and typically a little bit more involved in terms of how the actual mold itself is created and what process you have to use to get the material in there. We're going to watch a whole video on injection molding next time, so you're going to get very familiar with how this machine over here works. Some kinds include blow molding, which is how every bottle you've ever seen is created. And that is to say, there is a mold of a bottle. You put that on top of some molten plastic, and then you blow air into the plastic so it balloons up and essentially creates a balloon in the shape of this bottle. You let that balloon harden, and there you go. There's your bottle. Injection molding, like I said, we'll talk a lot more about next time, so hold that thought. Next, we have forming. Forming is the process of using a force on a material to denature it or deshape it, change its shape in some way. So tension, compression, shear, however you want to act on it. And there's all kinds of ways you can do this, but a really kind of exciting one is something called hot rolling. So I just want to show you a machine here. So right here, we have what's called hot rolling. We're taking giant sheets of metal and we're going to flatten them out into smaller sheets using this giant roller technique. So this is a big roller and you're rolling a sheet through it and it becomes thinner and thinner and thinner. Very exciting. That's just one way this is done. There's many others. Next, we have machining. Machining is removing material in a careful manner to create the shape you want. You can do this by using turning, drilling, or milling. So this machine over here is called a lathe. You affix some kind of material, typically wood, into the center. It gets spun around really quickly, and then you take a sharp object and put it next to it, and you shave away the outside. You use this to make bowls or cups. This is a drill. You guys are familiar with drills. And this over here is a CNC milling machine, which is essentially a computerized drill that can create all kinds of intricate shapes all by itself that you wouldn't be able to do by hand. We have one of these at the school. Sadly, we didn't get to use it this year. We have one of these as well. Additive manufacturing is just a fancy name for 3D printing. Currently, the way most 3D printing is done is using STL technology, which means we create a layer, and then another layer, and then a third layer, and so on and so forth. And over hundreds and hundreds of layers, you build up a three-dimensional object. And these can be pretty intricate and quite detailed as the technology has evolved. There's now talks of newer ways to do this that might potentially allow you to build an object from the center out, which would be pretty exciting because certain geometries we can't do by creating a bottom layer and then building up. So that's exciting. And last but not least, we have labeling and printing. Not much to say for this one. You guys all know what this is. It's exactly what it sounds like. Used for marketing, also making the product look appealing, or giving directions on the product itself. So, on my MCPS, assignment 22 is what you got to do by Friday. We talked about this first part. The second part, you got to go to Wikipedia and talk about a specific manufacturing technique. So these are families that we talked about. Now, I want you to pick one of these really specific ways to do these and describe it for me. So, what does it entail? What kind of material are you going to use? What is the product of doing this? And why might you want to do it? So let's say I want to talk about dip molding, for instance. I would click on it, and I would explain what dip molding is. And so on and so forth. You only need to talk about one. And then down here, we are going to watch this video on Friday. If you want to work ahead, you can. If you want to wait until Friday, I'll be showing this in class, and you can answer the questions then. If you have any problems or concerns, please make sure you email me. And don't forget to come to my office hours if you need to, every Wednesday from 9 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. See you then.